Welcome to the Fourth and Goal Sports Podcast. It's time for our 5-minute countdown. We're joined again tonight by Jeremy, along with Chris and David. We'll see you here in a few minutes. gentlemen.
What's up, buddy?
Hello, how are you tonight?
I'm doing really good.
Well, are you happy with what the Detroit Lions did in the draft?
I'm happy with everything we did. I called it. I said we were going cornerback and defense, and that's exactly what they did. I mean, it does help. I think Jeremy was right on last week. I think we would have traded back for sure for more second-round picks if it wasn't for the fact that the NFL it was just a weird draft, boys. They set the record for 14 straight offensive players picked, and it left the best. I mean, Mitchell and Terrion Arnold were 1 and 2 corners left on the draft board, who we never knew that we would ever have a chance at either of them. And guess what? Mitchell went first. Arnold was sitting there. And guess what? We really, from the rumors I've heard, we really fucked Green Bay over once again because Green Bay was going to take Terrion Arnold, and we jumped up and snagged his ass before they could get him. So that's Brian Branch, the same scenario, last year's draft. They wanted him. We jumped up. We got him before him, and we did it again. Brad Holmes is a genius.
I think it is safe to say that the story of the first night of the draft really began when the Atlanta Falcons took Michael Penix Jr.
Wow.
Okay. I think that, that is what allowed all these really, really terrific defensive players to fall down to further in the draft. And, it's all because of a mad rush to get quarterbacks. They went ahead. They had, all 6 quarterbacks went in the first round. They were all like, well, we're definitely going to have 3, maybe a 4th or 5th one. And then they all went because it's a mad rush for everybody to get quarterbacks. It's a quarterback-driven league. And they know that if they pick now, they can get ahead on, what it is that every team's trying to do, and that is build a team around a young quarterback with a cheap salary. Atlanta, by getting Michael Penix Jr., they have ensured themselves a way to they have insurance for Kirk Cousins. He's coming off of the Achilles injury or ACL. I forget what it is exactly, but it's, one of those that takes a long time to recover from. Now, he's not a mobile quarterback by any stretch of the imagination anyway. Atlanta plans to win the division. Atlanta plans to, get into the playoffs and have a shot at getting to the Super Bowl with all of the weapons that they have on offense that they have added, here in the offseason, now here in the draft, the defensive players that they have brought in over the last 2 off seasons, they are in a prime position, to really lead the NFC South, and they can't allow themselves to go into the year and not know whether or not they're going to have a viable option at quarterback like they did the last couple of seasons, guys.
Yeah, I mean, I get here's my thing. Here's my thing. I get the insurance purpose, but this could really fuck Atlanta too. Because here's the thing. You just guaranteed $100 million to Kirk Cousins for 4 years. Phoenix
160 of the 180 million.
Okay, 160.
They can't get rid of year 3. So
here's the thing. Also, Michael Penix Jr. is getting a 5-year deal. So now you're going to have a guy, if he don't play in the first 5 years, he's going to want out. He's going to want to go somewhere where he can play. especially if Cousins is still trying to play longer. Second of all, what if Kirk Cousins don't play his last year and Phoenix is in his last year and balls out the first 2 years? Now the dude's going to want a lot of money. And guess what? Quarterbacks get a lot of the money. So now you could just hurt your cap in that position going in the future. So I get why they did it. I understand the insurance policy, but shouldn't you already known by the time you gave Cousins that type of contract? I mean, if you're so worried that you had to draft a rookie for insurance purposes, why would you give a quarterback that type of money if you weren't 110% sure he is going to be able to play? So to me, that's just the crazy part of it. You got a lot of people here, buddy.
Yeah, I know. They're all watching left and right. As far as the Michael Penix thing, it's either going to be super brilliant or it's going to be super dumbass. There is no in between.
Yeah.
Because if they trade away Cousins in the offseason of year 3 and get a bunch of draft value to complete the team around Penix, it's a great job of drafting them. If Kirk Cousins looks like the second coming of young Matt Ryan and taking him deep in the playoffs every year, you can't get rid of him.
Exactly. Especially if he can still play at a high level, he's not going to want to leave. And now you're worried about. Now you got to worry about what's Cousins think of this. How's Cousins going to respond? Which I don't think Cousins will change his demeanor because he's been pretty professional with every team he's with, even when Washington did him dirty. So I don't see him being a distraction or drama queen. But I mean, you got this poor dude doing the hype up for the draft show. You know what I'm saying? And he gets a phone call like, hey, instead of getting you that wide receiver or someone who could really, really help you, we just drafted your replacement already. And now you got to groom this guy, and you're only on year 1 of your contract. I mean, to me, that's some disrespect to him. But I get it, but it just I can't get over the purpose. It's an insurance policy. Making sure they're all good. But, hey, we're going to give you this type of money right off the bat.
Well, it's too late. Kirk is already pissed. Kirk put out a tweet the night that Penix was. He goes, what the hell? I wasn't even notified you guys were going to draft a quarterback in the first round. I thought you were building to win this year. Then Arthur Blank, when the name was called, did you see how he looked like a deer in headlights in the war room?
I didn't really see that part because I was at a bar for that, and I was just kind of stunned.
When they cut to the war room, his eyes looked like a deer caught in headlights. He had no clue this was happening. He's pissed. Because as I said, they were supposed to be building the team to win this year. And their 2 biggest needs was cornerback or linebacker. There wasn't a first-round linebacker, so they were going cornerback. That means Quinyon or Terrion should have win at pick 8.
Yeah.
So that threw everything in a tizzy. The mad rush to get quarterbacks happened. It was so bad that Minnesota, who didn't need to trade up because there's no way the Jets were taking an early quarterback, traded up a spot to get JJ. Then 2 picks later at 12, you see the Broncos go, screw it, we'll take Bo Nix, who will prop. But that's actually smart because all they got is bum 1 and bum 2. They got Zach Wilson, a failed first-round pick, and Jason Stidham, a failed backup. Getting Bo Nix there makes sense. But if Atlanta didn't do that, they'd have had Penix. Because they didn't even take the best quarterback on the board. They reached. So it's like a lose-lose situation. I mean, to them, that was their second best quarterback on the board, and I get that. but it made no sense to me.
You don't see the private chat, David?
I see the thing on the right that we normally have, but yeah, we could talk to each other, but it doesn't have the it doesn't have the comments as they come in from people from YouTube or Facebook or wherever, and there's no way to switch back and forth like I used to be able to do.
Yep.
That's missing for some reason.
And go.
You're missing it too, aren't you, Jeremy?
Yeah, all I got is the private chat.
Yeah.
It could be. It's on my end, and I'm looking through the settings. Give us a minute, guys.
Because I'm not seeing what anybody is saying.
They're
coming fast and furious on the screen, but there's nothing over here that you've highlighted or that it shows what they're saying. That's all right.
Yeah.
Listen, okay, so, just talking about if you'll show the ticker, we'll go through, the first round here. Everybody expected it to be, quarterback. There was some, conjecture or whatever about whether or not it was going to be May or Daniels or perhaps McCarthy in that top three, but it basically went chalk. And so those teams got who they wanted, who everybody expected them to take.
We got a question for you, Will.
Do what?
Okay, let's see.
Oh. Anyway, so you got Washington gets Jaden Daniels.
Yep.
Okay, I think that's going to work out just fine for them. They've got every team that has taken a quarterback here in the top three has someone, on their team that they can turn to if they have to kind of be a veteran presence for their rookie quarterback. They've got the coaches there, that to support these players. It's a lot better situation for all of these three guys up at the top than, say, Bryce Young kind of went into last year. Especially for Chicago, Caleb Williams has got a full plethora of weapons at his disposal. And so, I look for Chicago after this draft to be a contender in the division. To have a shot at a wild card. It will depend on, of course, the schedule. We know who they're going to be facing, but at what time of year, okay? Are they going to go to, a foreign game in perhaps London or, Germany or anything like that? Are they going to be playing in some cold weather places, when the weather's real bad? Are they going to, some of the best teams in the league right out of the gate? So some of those things will be important, when it comes to what their overall record could be. Your thoughts, guys, on how you think things turned out for the first three teams?
No, I'm not, buddy. I'll go with Chicago. Chicago had a solid draft. I'm not on the Caleb Williams train. This dude to me, I'm pretty sure flops. Just with his attitude, his cockiness, how he's been acting. I've watched his pre-draft interviews, even after. I don't think Chicago has no chance for a playoff this year. I'll be surprised if they have a wild card this year. And I'm not saying it because he can't be good and prove me wrong. I just don't think a rookie quarterback is going to take Chicago underneath that coaching staff. They've already proven to ruin one quarterback. To me, I think the Bears' biggest mistake was keeping their head coach, and that's where I'm at. Now, they had a different head coach to me that was better in this situation with Caleb Williams, then maybe I would agree they would actually have a chance for a wild card. But they don't. The dude framed the OC as being the problem. he started taking over the plays, and the team did not get better. Their defense kept them in games. Their defense, mind you. And they pulled a couple close games out last year. And guess what? They played the Lions tough. I'm not going to take credit away from them. But but that was all defense. And honestly, we gave them the game they beat us. We made a bad play that set them up perfect, and Justin Fields showed out on that play and made us pay. You know what? I give him full credit for it, but I just don't trust their coaching staff and play with this kid.
Well, I think they had a solid draft, and I think I give it a B. But at the same time, because they did a luxury pick when they didn't have to get another weapon at 9, they should have went the best offensive lineman and shored up that O-line, because that O-line has a lot to do. Everybody can blame it on Justin Fields if they want. But last year, Justin Fields actually looked decent in the pocket when the pocket was held. He only got out when there was pressure on him, and it was a lot of pressure. He was chased out of the pocket, and he was one of the second most sacked quarterbacks in the league last year. If you expect a rookie to be able to thrive with that, you don't. What you can expect is they're going to be good defensively again.
Yeah.
Because they were top 5 defense.
I mean, I don't know how true it is, but I seen an article that he texted the kicker or the punter they drafted in the draft and said, "Welcome to the team, but we're not going to need your services that much." I mean, for any kid that just got drafted, never played a down, if that's true, that to me is like warning label number 1.
Which one never played it down?
Listen, to me, this is so funny because if this was, and I'm not kidding, if this was a Detroit Lions guy and he was being all boastful and prideful, you guys would say you loved it, okay? But because it's a Chicago Bears guy doing that, okay, he contacted the punter that they drafted and told him, he played for Iowa, and Iowa punted a ton.
Right.
We're not going to need you to punt as many times as you did at Iowa. He wasn't saying they wasn't going to need him at all. They're just saying, Iowa was that bad, and you're coming to a team where we're going to have a good offense. You have to remember, they got a new offensive coordinator to go with their new quarterback. They've got all these weapons. They brought in offensive linemen this offseason in free agency. Okay.
And you know what?
The
None of them
defense
were
was
rated
strong.
as good as Cody Whitehair.
Do what?
God. None of them were rated as good PFF-wise. And PFF, the only thing they're accurate on is O-linemen. None of them rated as good as Cody Whitehair. So they actually got worse. No, they got worse at the position. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Okay, but let me tell you something, okay? All of these things where they rate these players and everything, when they're rating these players, some of the time, it's because of the group that they're surrounded with, okay? Especially in an offensive line. Now you're going to have a new group working together, and perhaps they will gel better based on their personalities or the line coach that was brought in or whatever the case may be. You guys, it feels to me like that you're saying, oh, they got no shot.
I'm not saying they don't have a shot.
That's how Chris is framing it. There's no chance they're going to make the playoffs. Caleb Williams is a bust, and everything that they've done, they're lucky they picked, Aduze with the second pick that they had, because they're going to need a different quarterback real soon because he paints his nails.
Hey,
that is what I said.
You can twist my words, but that's not what I said. I said, I think he's going to be a bust. Even if he isn't a bust, they don't make the playoffs in their first year. I don't see it. I don't think he's going to be that good to take them to the playoffs. That's just my personal opinion. If you're going to twist my words,
no, I mean, it just feels like you're giving them no chance at all. We haven't even got the schedule released yet, okay?
Well, to me,
We all
is
have a blank slate.
I'm also going off,
the new year.
David. I'm also going off Josh Rosen. Do we remember Josh Rosen? Where's that guy at? Because if I'm not mistaken, he said in the draft interview, I'm the best quarterback in the draft. What happened to Rosen, David? That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm truly going off is the cockiness. Because every cocky, arrogant QB that come in the draft has turned into what?
Okay.
Go back even further. Jamarcus Russell was that way.
Exactly. You can name them. You know, to me, I think Minnesota stole this draft.
I was very happy. You know, as far as just the first round is concerned, you know, I said that they could probably just sit back and wait, and they nearly did. I don't know what spooked them into moving up one spot, but you know, they went ahead. They got their guy, okay, who you think is great. I preferred Bo Nix, but we're gonna have J.J. McCarthy, so that's the guy in Minnesota. But because of all the quarterbacks going early, the surprises and all of the offensive players, here you go. One of the best defensive pass rushers falls to the Vikings. They trade up again to 17 and pick up Dallas Turner, and he's going to be their replacement for Danielle Hunter.
Absolutely. That was a great pick. I love that pick for Minnesota.
Well, to me, this is my opinion too. I've said it, you know, through Facebook the last couple of days. I think the two best quarterbacks in this draft was Daniels from LSU and JJ. And May's up there. You know, I'm not talking about May, but I just know from his scouting report a lot with the feet and the way he's throwing the ball, you know. But I want to see how he plays. I just don't like the cockiness of Williams. I think JJ, how much he puts into the game, studying film. The dude don't party, don't drink. You know what I mean? He's 24/7 football. I think that's just the type of quarterback that you would want to get drafted to your team. You know what I'm saying?
In all actuality, Caleb did actually said the Bears wasted a pick because all you're going to do is ride the bench. That was his word.
Yeah.
So he did say, we're not going to need you. That's basically what they said. The Bears wasted a pick because you're going to ride the bench all year.
I mean, to be honest, I think the Bears.
No, doesn't a punter ride the bench all year anyway? No, he only comes out the punt once in a while. Right, no matter what team he's on.
They wasted a pick because you'll never see the field, basically. He said you're a waste of a pick.
I mean, when you say it that way, I mean, that's what making it sound, you know what I mean?
But at least they traded up and grabbed an edge, but I still think, and I don't care what you say, they should have went for a rookie offensive lineman instead of a wide receiver at 9. I think that was a luxury pick because they already had a good wide receiver room.
Scott would kick Chris off the show if he was vaping on.
Yes, he would. It's his, but this is Chris's show. It ain't my show.
Exactly. And I do vape on the show. I do, you know. I don't think it's that big of a deal.
Chris is the vape guy.
I'm the vape guy now.
Yeah,
also, I wanted to share this. I wanted to give my city some credit here.
Absolutely. Just, you know, watching on TV, of course, you guys were there. You know, very impressive. Of course, you guys broke the record for the overall attendance for the event, beating Nashville out. And I'm sorry that it didn't work out for you there, Chris, to be able to get to where you needed to be on night one. We never talked about whether you made it on any of the other evenings. But, you know, they didn't have any warnings about when they were going to start closing down, when they were letting people in. And it got to capacity pretty quickly from what you told us.
Yes.
I can actually tell you because I was there on day 3. I spoke to a Metropolitan Police officer. The numbers, if it's actually way lower than what it actually was, because they could only fit up to 300,000 fans a day, right? We were at basically almost Nashville's number at the end of day 2.
Yeah.
They said we did like 110,000 to beat it on day 3 morning, and we beat it to the tune of 775,000.
Yeah.
So you think about that. Plus,
Is that coming in clear, guys?
Yeah, I can see it. Kansas City was 312. Las Vegas was 325. Cleveland was 160. That was the commissioner's basement virtual, so it didn't count. But Nashville was the last really big one.
Yeah. And this is just crazy. I've never seen so many people in Detroit all in one weekend.
Now, wait, here's the great part. Metropolitan Detroit. They only had to break up 2 fights between fans, which you heard nothing about, because they had 400 officers on duty at the draft each night, plus the ones patrolling the streets. They only had 2 fights and 1 DUI in the whole draft area, which included Greektown, by Ford Field, over there by all the other stadiums and everything else. That's all they had on Friday and Saturday night. And if you think about that, that's an amazing job, not only by everybody who attended the draft, but by all the citizens of Detroit, by not acting a fool like you usually hear about
Yes.
at big functions. I mean, the only thing that really happened was the reason why they went over capacity on Monday night or on Friday night was at one of the gates in between the 2 gates, a crowd of people decided, about 20,000 pushed down some gates and rushed in. So there was 20,000 extra in there already. So you could technically say 795,000 people were there.
Yeah. That actually happened right after I walked off and went back to the bar. Because my buddy mentioned it. He came to me. He's like, "You think we could sneak down the exit lane and sneak in, act like we're walking out, then turn around and act like we changed our minds?" And I was like, "No, because I don't know how the cops would act or the security would act if they did catch us in that act." And like I was telling Jeremy before the show started, was the only thing I was bummed out is how they handled the whole thing about the capacity.
Right.
Because before we left, as we were waiting on the free shuttle, it's popped up, said gate 1 is closed due to being backed up. So I'm like, okay, so a lot of people are just trying to go to gate 1. So we get there, and then they're like, go to gate 2. So we get to Jefferson. There's like 10,000 people in line. And then as we get to the line, it pops up, gates are closed, won't reopen for anything for the rest of the night. And I'm like, dude, I watched the news. I checked every app. Like, why are you now just waiting? Why wasn't the warning like, hey, we had to shut down gate 1 because we're getting close to capacity?
Yeah,
because if I would have known that, I probably wouldn't walk 3 miles.
It was good for you. It was good for you.
Hey, it didn't bother me. I just had my pops with me. And by the end of it, his back was really bothering him, so I felt bad because he walked all that way for nothing, And it was just really bummed out because, like, Allie Goodman that we've had on the show, the fan of the year in 2023, her and her husband flew down, paid for a room I can't imagine how much money she spent for a room down in Detroit. She got locked out the first night of the draft, too. They left and went to go get dinner, came back, couldn't get back in. And it was just like seeing people that spent so much money that don't live there get stuck out is who I felt worse, actually, more than me, because I lived 20 minutes, not even. Took me 20 minutes to get home, So to me, getting locked out, yes, it bummed me out, but, I'm not out of $100s to stay in that city to be at that thing, Right. But the whole crazy thing is I couldn't believe that they pretty much closed it down for almost 3 days. I think the last day you could have got in there, but there were still a lot of people, man. They hit 700,000 people is just insane.
Did you guys actually see the draft chart for draft capital over expectations? Did you guys see that chart yet?
I heard it was something around 400,000.
No. Draft capital. I'm talking about where they expected the people to be picked and where they got picked and how the teams rated in that category.
No, I do not think I know, Scott.
Lions were one of the worst ones at a 2.0. This year, we were at a negative 1.5 and led the league.
Wow.
For an average. That means that we picked players at a minimum of 1.5 rounds total from where they expected when they're going over. The Dolphins tied us. The Chiefs were next, tied with the Steelers. Then it was the only ones that were at exactly a 1 round early pick was the Eagles. The next ones all tied at 0.06 under expectation was the Saints, Ravens, and the Broncos. Then at -3 was the Vikings and the Rams. So these are supposed to be the ones you are supposed to say won the draft technically by expectation.
Yeah.
How many broads did I pull at the draft? I was so tired I pulled none.
Boulevard Wheat for me. It's a Kansas City-based brewery. But when it's not available, I just go with Bud Light. I want to say that we should be extremely thankful. The huge crowds that were there, and like you said, there was not really an incident. We have to remember the last time there was a big gathering similar to this was at the parade for the Chiefs, and there was a problem there. There's always the threat of something bad could happen, and we get through one unscathed here.
Just like last night at Houston, a young man was upset. His girlfriend went into a bar and started firing shots. And Tank Dell was winged by a shot. It's a minor injury. He should be back by OTA.
Oh, wow.
So that happened last night as well.
I did not hear about that.
Yep, I saw a report by Adam Schefter, and he said he was already released and he's not under investigation because he did no wrongdoing.
Well, thank God he's.
Yeah,
that's
good.
Just went through
I expect Houston to be dynamic this year. Tank's coming off of an injury at the end of the season, and but I expect him to be a big part of what they're going to be doing this year.
Detroit was prepared because I had a buddy doing catering right across from the draft stage, and he works for a big place that do big events like this. And before the draft started, they was actually snipers on the top of those buildings looking down. And he's like, "Don't worry, the snipers are keeping us safe here." And I was kind of shocked that they actually had snipers there, but I was like, it's probably a good thing. This case, something crazy did pop off.
People can say what they want, but Detroit SWAT is just as trained as LA SWAT, New York SWAT, Chicago SWAT, because if they're needed, they'll be used. And no, I don't think they know Scott the Motor City Madmouth because they have yet to have been on a show with them. I'm working on getting some more of our guests. Good Lord. Let's leave the punishment stuff alone. His punishment is he can't be on the show for 2 weeks.
Let's get back on track here. We talked about the top 3 picks. Moving on to number 4, Arizona. In our mock draft, I had Arizona and I thought that they should go with Malik Neighbors. Here they go with the safe pick in Marvin Harrison Jr. I think it's gonna be fine for them. I mean, I think he'll be a great player for them, but I just don't think he's got the speed that Neighbors has. But I think he'll have a long-term, consistent Pro Bowl effort year after year, just based on bloodlines.
Yep, I think it's a good pick for him, to be honest. I know me and David last year, we were kind of hard on Murray because, with all the stuff that went on over there, we didn't know how good the Cardinals would look when he came back. But when he came back, you seen the big upgrade for him, and they started winning a few games, at the end of the season. So I think this could be a weapon that's really going to help Murray going ahead this year to maybe get back on track to where he was a couple years ago when he had Hopkins.
And they played people tough. That defense played very tough. We don't have, a breakdown of everybody that they got in the particular here this weekend. But from what I saw, I thought they filled some holes. I thought that they definitely, helped bolster their defense. They're working on, protecting Kyler Murray with offense. And so, having Marvin Harrison Jr. there, not necessarily as a safety blanket, but as his primary target going forward, you could do a hell of a lot worse.
Yeah. And I think it's a good thing for Arizona, and I'm hoping that this pick works out for them because, I feel bad for the state of Arizona. They lost their hockey team to Utah. So a lot of fans are devastated. And, I feel like if Arizona could be good again and get back to playoff caliber football, that city would really, band behind them because they're, other than the Diamondbacks, that's all they got there right now.
Well, yeah, because the Phoenix Suns have been a disappointment in the NBA this year. They added Kevin Durant, and then, they're not doing well.
Oh, I'm sorry. I totally forgot the Suns.
Well, that's, because they're not doing well. I mean, they made the playoffs and you expect them to do something, and then they don't.
Yeah.
But, I think that the Chargers, there was a lot of talk, ahead of time about who they were going to take, an offensive line. And I think that perhaps they got the best of the group, here. They bolster their offensive line. Rather than going with the receiver, they're going to pick up a guy later on in the draft and everything. But, the idea here is that Jim Harbaugh, at every place that he has been, okay, they run the football, they pound it at him, and they play defense. Even though he was a quarterback, both college and in the pros, as a coach, he sticks with the basics and the foundation of professional football and goes with the offensive lineman here, Jeremy.
Yeah, and that was smart. I mean, they needed help because Rashawn Slater has not had but one healthy season, and that was his rookie year. He's been going on and off the IR. The other tackle goes on and off the IR. They needed O-line help. So it was very smart to go with Joe Alt. They did get some pieces down through there. They needed to bolster the cornerback room. They needed to bolster the linebacker room. They did all that. But the problem is who they picked and where they picked them and who was available.
Yeah, kept his Michigan linebacker, Colson, right?
Which is fine. That's where he should have been picked, was in the second round. So that was a great pick. But Max Melton was listed as a third to fourth rounder because he was in the 90s as a prospect. So when they grabbed him, that kind of was like, oh, let's pull somebody that we don't need or some play later than the ones that are here that are better. And then they did the same thing later on and with other positions, which is why their draft value is a little lower than what everybody expected. And that's why PFF gave them a solid B because the top end of their draft was better than the back end of their draft.
Yeah. You're talking about Joe Alt, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I thought it was a solid pick. They needed offensive line, I thought the Chargers had a pretty solid draft all the way around. I'm kind of shocked though, because do they still have Eckler? Or did Eckler leave them?
Eckler's gone to the Commanders on a 2-year deal.
I was kind of shocked that he didn't take Blake Corum right before Blake Corum was actually drafted.
They picked up Gus Edwards from the Baltimore Ravens in free agency. He's going to be their lead dog.
But, he did get his Michigan boys on defense, two of them. He got Colston and Johnson, a solid cornerback, which I figured he would try to land some defensive players on the Michigan side of the ball.
Then Neighbors goes to the Giants. They needed a dynamic playmaker. And so, a lot of talk that they may take J.J. McCarthy there with the 6th pick. And I think they were trying to bait and get, Minnesota to come up and spend all their assets to do that. And, Minnesota tried to trade for the number 3 pick and avoid the Giants. The Giants, I think they priced themselves too high, and the New England wasn't willing to part with their pick, and that's one of the reasons why the Vikings ended up standing pat at 11 until they, got a little antsy there at the end and went into 10 and traded with the Jets. But, they get Neighbors, so he's going to pair well with the other guys that they have on that team. They've got Shepard and Slayton. They picked up a tight end in this draft because they're not sure whether or not Darren Waller may retire or not. And so, they're going to stick with Daniel Jones. Tyrod Taylor is not the backup there anymore. I don't know. Hang on.
While he's doing that, Florida
used to be a Drew Lock. Drew Lock is going to be the guy because they don't know if Jones is going to be healthy enough to start the season.
Oh, that is true. The only case I had, and I guess you'd call me a homer on it, I thought there was a chance that Corum could go in the first round just because I think he could be another Fred Taylor in the league. Everybody thought Taylor, had so much running under him that it was a bad pick for Indy when they drafted him. And look how solid he's actually been for Indy. But, it's always a reach when they draft a running back in the first round. You've seen everybody's critics when we did it last year with Gibbs.
Yeah, let me say something here real quick. We talked about the possibility of him going in the first round to Dallas because Dallas doesn't really have a lead running back. Dallas had the opportunity to draft Corum in the second round after they'd already gotten Guyton in the first round on the offensive line. And the first running back had already been taken off the board by Carolina, the guy from Texas. Yeah. And so I thought Corum to Dallas in the second round was going to happen, and they went in another direction. And it sounds like Dallas is going to re-sign Ezekiel Elliott after a year away with the Patriots.
Yep. That's what I heard. And to me, that's why it makes no sense for Cowboy fans because, Jerry's comments to the media, they're all in. They're going for it all. And they haven't done nothing this offseason, hardly. They didn't do nothing in the draft. And now you're getting Zeke. And what did Zeke do last year for New England?
He was solid for him when Ramondre Stevenson went down.
I mean, he was solid, but
he wasn't good.
You know what I mean? To me, he's not the guy that's going to come back and help you to the promised land. Is all I'm saying. I'm not saying that he don't have history there or he was a bad running back his whole career or anything. I just don't think Zeke is Zeke like he used to be when he was with Dallas.
Guys, I watch Pro Football Talk with Mike Florio and Chris Sims, and there's a theory that Mike Florio has is that Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys have sold to their fans that the America's team, is doing everything they can to win a Super Bowl. And he thinks that is all just talk. And it's starting to seem like that's true. That, they say these things to keep the fan base interested. They say these things, to get everybody all pumped up. And then they just do the same thing they always do, which is just rehash what they're doing. Now they did try and improve their offensive line. I think they picked up a few pieces here and there, but they've got so many guys, and you're right, Ron, so many guys that they're going to have to pay they're going to end up losing some of these guys, or they're going to end up having to make a change at quarterback if they want to keep them. You got Lamb's going to want to get paid. You got Parsons is going to want to get paid. And then here you're sinking all of your resources into your quarterback. They've just got too many overpaid people on the team in order to be a contender. They're going to make the playoffs. That's what they generally do because they have an overall good team, but they fall flat every time because they don't have people to get them over the hump.
Yeah, and it's just to me it's just crazy. I'm thankful every day I'm not a Dallas fan.
Yeah, what's funny is the Lions stole that moniker from Dallas back in 1991 when Pat Summerall and John Madden called the wild card game when Detroit Lions stomped a mud hole in Dallas's butt with a 31-6 thrashing on the legs of Barry Sanders. And John Madden literally said, "There they are, the 91 Detroit Lions. They're American."
We got a question for you, buddy, David, on the screen here.
How do you know all this stuff? I pay attention. I do a lot of reading with football books. Every year I subscribe to the Lindy's Pro Football Annual so that I know all of the lineups. I'm on. It's Pro Football Chase. If you go there on Facebook, every day you will see all of the transactions that happen, throughout the league. They're very good about telling you what's happening. Of course, I like Adam Schefter and I like, Ian Rappaport. And so anything that they post, always I get those things. That I have. I'm in the truck all day. I'm delivering parts and supplies and materials. And so I have the opportunity to listen to the radio, and I listen to Pro Football Talk, the Dan Patrick Show, follow that up sometimes with Coward, but, he's so full of shit sometimes. I go with NFL XM Satellite Radio, Channel 88, Pat Kerwin and Jim Miller. They're very good, moving the chains. And then, there are just other things inside the NFL. I watch ESPN. I watch Pardon the Interruption. I'm all out sports all the time. I love to, I do not because, I'm not really a Detroit Lions fan. I met Chris through NFL Renegades, and we kind of got this started last year because I was going to be a guest, and the next thing you know, I'm a host. And so it's we're keeping things together here. It's been going well for us, and I love football, and I pay attention to all of it, including the spring football leagues, because sometimes you can get players from them other leagues. It's just like a minor league, and so I keep track of everything. That's how I know.
Exactly. And, I asked David to be a guest, and I'm glad he stuck it out because to me, the show wouldn't be what it is without David. We do good with each other. He can give me shit. I give him shit. We don't get mad at each other. So it works out real good when you have that type of relationship.
I appreciate it, buddy. And I get a lot of grief because I have divided loyalties. I'm born here in Kansas, and so I'm a Kansas City Chiefs fan, but I like the Minnesota Vikings in the NFC. And they're like, well, who are you rooting for if they face each other? And I'm like, Chiefs.
So, yeah, you got your main one that if they play each other, that's who you're going to root for. And you know what?
I'm not going to lie.
And listen, it's been fun. It's been so fun because, me and Chris get together last year. And then the first game of the year is our teams, the Detroit versus Kansas City. Detroit's coming on strong. Kansas City's in the middle of a dynasty. So it's been crazy how it's worked out for us. And, I really thought, man, we had a shot at it being, a rematch in the Super Bowl. That would have been so awesome. And, they just blew the lead there,
There was more than just a few mistakes in that game.
Yeah.
But what's funny? San Francisco made the exact same mistakes when they played the Chiefs.
They're going to get it cleaned up, I'm telling you. You guys got a really good shot again this year, but you're going to have a tough division. I'm not saying Minnesota is going to be, a wrecking ball of any case. I think Chicago is going to be stronger than you let on. And I would be very concerned after the showing that the Packers put on last year at the end of the season that they're going to be right there. So you're not, last year, it's never a cakewalk. It's never easy to win in the NFL. But, it's going to be between those two teams there at the top. And I think either team could win. Let's see what they do with these new pieces, how they gel, what it looks like. We'll know a few weeks into the year whether, it's going to be a dogfight to the end or if you can, take a sigh of relief and know, you still got the better team in the division.
I still think we got the best team in the division. I don't think we really lost a step.
I think we didn't lose a step. We lost ground to the teams behind us because they got more improved than what the Lions did, is what I'm getting at. We filled holes to stay where we were at, but everybody else got better too. The whole division. We were the second best division in football last year when you go by total wins in the division with all four teams. The only division that had more wins total than the NFC North was the AFC North.
Yep.
Well, see, this is how I'm looking at it. I think Green Bay definitely took steps to get better. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying Minnesota is going to go worse, but to me, with Minnesota, we got to see how Sam Darnold plays as a starter.
I think he'll be okay.
And then
I really do.
If he struggles, JJ is going to get put in. How is JJ going to do if he gets put in midway of the season? And then with Chicago right now, it looks like Williams is going to have the reins of the keys from week one.
Yeah, so the fourth team in the division right now until they prove otherwise. Chicago is the third team. Once again, Green Bay, Detroit will battle for the lead in the division. But, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a bloodbath and they bludgeon each other, everybody in this division throughout the year, depending on if they're playing at home or on the road. What's the weather going to be like when you're playing in the outdoor games? And so, all of those types of things add up when it comes down to it,
If they were little people in the division, I would say almost D-line, because if they're little people, the O-linemen would trip over them and fall right down, and your linebackers would have a field day.
Or running back.
Or running backs.
Does he always ask really strange questions?
Yeah, we get them. It's okay. It's fun.
Oh, boy.
I mean, and realistically, the division could be way harder. You know what I mean? There's a reason why this division's called Black and Blue Division. I don't expect it to be any worse. That's for sure. I just, to me, is two teams have real questions on the running back or the quarterback's position. One starting a rookie, the other one is starting a bridge quarterback to help the rookie learn coming in the league. And Green Bay's, I think they're going to be way better than they were last year. But I just really like the defense of things we did in this draft, and I think that's where it makes us better, because not that we just filled holes. We actually have two corners to come in that could start right off the bat, and they have the ability to be the missing pieces that we struggled in the secondary last year.
Ron has PTSD. A lot of Lions fans do. You think you're on the rise some years, and last year was unbelievable, and then you're like, please don't let us fall off and go back to the doldrums of the division, And so once you get a couple wins right out of the gate, you'll know that everything's fine, and you won't be so nervous come Sundays. Of course, it could be Mondays. You guys are going to be in prime time, for sure again this year.
See, my thing is this is Ron. I'm going to reply to your comment here. Just relax. Last year, David asked me if I was nervous, and if you go back to last year's episodes, I was pretty calm for most part. There was a couple during the season that they had me worked up, but going into the last off season before the season actually kicked off, I was pretty calm. And that's just how I've been all year this year with all the moves we made. Because guess what? At first, I questioned why did we do this with this guy, but I remained calm. And the team, Brad Holmes, Campbell, showed me exactly I had nothing to worry about pretty much all year last year. And I still think we for sure make playoffs. Regardless if we're the division winner or a wild card. I don't think we miss the playoffs unless something drastic happens, So that's just how I'm looking into it.
You'd have to suffer a major injury, yeah.
Exactly, So I'm going into it as I'm as relaxed and just going through the week, taking week by week, just like I did last year. I'm not letting the past get to me. The past is dead to me. I'm not even thinking about that anymore. Because, for the first time in my life, the Lions showed me that this is a different type of football. I agreed. The second guy we got, I was honestly really shocked that we doubled up on corner. But after I looked at him, I was like, dude, this dude is a dog. Like, I could see, Brad Holmes came straight out, and he's like, I seen the dog in him. I wanted him, Go ahead, Jeremy.
I said all along, Kerryon Arnold was the best all-around cornerback. Him and Quinyon Mitchell. It was a 1A, 1B because they were both the same, the best in their divisions. You can say that Quinyon didn't play in a good division, but he looked great. But what they are number one and number two at is run defense. As you see there, I put that Arnold was 90.9 EFF rated at run defense, and Rakestraw was rated at 88.2. So they were 1 and 2 at run defense, but at coverages, Rakestraw struggles in man coverage because he has stiff hip. He does run faster in game film than he does in the 40 time of the Pajama Olympics. So I throw out those times when they got great game film and they track everybody by GPS. Both Arnold and Rakestraw was tracked really fast in gameplay. Kerryon Arnold on 20 different occasions was clocked at 21 miles per hour. That is not a 4.47 40 time or a 4.5 40 time.
And who I'm really excited about? Amik Robinson. Did you see his tweet?
Yeah. But Rakestraw was clocked at 22 miles an hour in game on 18 different occasions. So that means they have good top speed available. They just, when some guys don't run as hard when they're not in pad.
Yeah.
Look at Brian Branch. He's way faster on the field than he was at his 4.55 40 time, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. But see, what's going to happen is I think he's going to go to corner, and I think Branch is going to go back to safety. But I also believe, too, is Branch will work in with, what's his name? He's number 6, I believe. He was the rookie that came in safety with us throughout the season. Yeah. So I think him and Branch will switch between safety and nickel cornerback. And I think Branch is going to be used as a hybrid, and they're going to move that little mofo around the whole field and just fuck with offenses because he can play so much positions.
They have already said that Branch is moving to safety.
Okay, has it been confirmed permanently?
That has been confirmed. They have already said France is going to play more like 70% at safety than at the nickel this year. Rakestraw, right now, as far as I'm concerned, because he's so raw in man coverage because he has stiff hips and he struggles getting handsy when beat with double moves, drawing penalties. Right now, I have him as either the nickel or the dime corner on this roster. Because if Mosley is healthy, he's more than likely going to be the one, which makes an easier job for Terry and Arnold to transition into the NFL playing at DB2, which means we can have Amit and Carlton Davis switching off at the slot, who both have outside capability, but are natural slot corners.
Yes.
So I'm just going by what I see and what I know about football in the game film that I have actually paid attention to with these guys coming out of college. Because I don't just look at the highlights in any draft guide. I formulate my own opinion.
This is not a weed pen. Just for everybody wants to know, it's not a weed pen. It's a breeze. This tobacco, this nicotine.
It's obvious you've solidified your secondary. But let's move on. You know, we've got some offensive linemen that come off the board here to Tennessee. You know, we talked about, the Atlanta situation by drafting Penix. We've talked about, J.J. McCarthy. We talked about, Roma Duze going to Chicago. So I want to skip ahead to the next player that I think is of importance here. And, so for me, when we go down the line and you look at all of the guys that were selected, we get a big group of offensive linemen. We have the big group of the quarterbacks. Bo Nix goes to Denver. But the guy that I want to bring up is the tight end. Bowers out of Georgia goes to the Raiders after they selected Michael Mayer last year. And they don't have really, a number one quarterback, to throw him the ball. And, so I look here, they can run a lot of double tight end sets. They still have Devontae Adams, there, and they've got Jacoby Myers. But are they going to stick with Zamir White as the lead running back? Because they let Josh Jacobs go to the Packers. It seems to me that this is a mistake drafting this, the tight end here when they have other needs on the team, Chris.
Yeah, I was actually surprised because I seen where I've heard reports that they wanted to take a QB in the first round, and then they come drafting a tight end, which that kind of shocked me.
Blindsided by the Penix thing because I think they thought Penix was going to come down to them, and then suddenly Atlanta takes them because there was a lot of mock drafts and a lot of talk earlier before the draft that Michael Penix was going to be the guy for the Raiders, because he wasn't valued as, the fourth quarterback. He was valued as, either the fifth or sixth quarterback, and then he gets taken by Atlanta. And so I think that really screwed up what the Raiders had planned. And so maybe they just went for best available player.
Yeah.
You're exactly right. When Penix went and then Bo Nix went, because Bo Nix going to the Broncos, because you didn't hear that the Broncos were going to take a quarterback right away. It sounded like they were either going to go O-line or defense. So when that happens, and then they take that last quarterback that had a possible first round grade, because remember, Bo Nix and Penix were both rated first or second round, not true first round talents.
Yeah.
So when that happened, they said, oh, crap. So they just took the best offensive weapon, period, because the best O-lineman was already off the board.
Which is still crazy.
Do you know that your screen is shut off, Jeremy?
Yes, I do.
Oh, okay. So, just continuing on here, I mean, we're kind of sidetracking and going through some of these other picks that, offensive lineman's not a glamour position. So, you can talk about some teams that help themselves, but it isn't necessarily, they should have taken an offensive lineman. There was some really good ones available, Ron. You're right there. But, we get to, these other teams, they see these offensive linemen are still available, and, man, they start snatching them up as quick as they can, before the really good ones are all gone. Amarius Mims is gone, and Fuega and Fatanu, these guys get snatched up here, over the next few picks. And so for me, the next pick to really have something to talk about is, LA missed out on the chance to get their defensive tackle replacement. I thought that Byron Murphy was the perfect guy for them, to replace Aaron Donald. Instead, they ended up going with Verse out of Florida State because they missed out on him. He ended up going to Seattle. Murphy did. And so, you've got, for me, they definitely needed pass rush. They'd lost pass rush over the last couple of years. Von Miller walked off after they, signed him and brought him in for their Super Bowl year. He goes to Buffalo. Aaron Donald was a force in the pass rush, even though he was a defensive tackle. He retires. They lost, was it Leonard something? I think he ended up going to Buffalo too, Yeah. And so they needed pass rush. They get Verse here in the first round. You don't know what he'll turn into be. He's not Aaron Donald.
Right. That was a great pick for Seattle. And Jared Verse is still a sneaky good pick because remember, Aaron Donald didn't just play D tackle. He played D end. So he gets to replace that role at D end and possibly switch into outside linebacker with the choice, because every now and then, remember, they would slide Donald out there and go with three big defensive tackles across in that 3-4 they run. So there's some versatility they can use. It's just the opposite versatility of what we're used to. Instead of somebody that can go from the 5 to the 9 technique, they got somebody that can go from the 3 to the 9.
Yeah. And
I completely skipped over Latu, who, was recommended to retire when he was playing at Washington, goes to UCLA, turns his career around, I guess, because he didn't get injured. There were concerns about him and his neck. And here he is. He gets taken in the first round by the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah. He actually had his surgery done by the same doctor that Peyton Manning went to for his neck when they thought Peyton Manning was going to have to retire when he was with the Colts before he went to Denver. And
he took human growth hormone?
I don't know. All I know is I was reading the story and seeing
joke, yeah.
And seeing where he had the same surgery. The chat's not being ignored, but your comments, you guys are just coming in so fast. We're trying to do the topic and fit where we're at. I'll look at some comments. Somebody said Tom Brady real quick. Tom Brady playing for the Raiders. He mentioned he would come back for the Raiders, a couple teams. But in reality, I don't think he can come back because now he's part owner of the Raiders.
No, that's why he can come back, because he hasn't accepted his commentator role. If he takes his commentator role, he loses all his bonus money from Fox because he hasn't done that yet. Even as an owner, the only team he can play for is the one he owns.
Oh, okay. See, I didn't know that. I thought the rule was you can't play for any team if you were half owner.
Well, he hasn't technically. He's in the process of buying a piece of the Raiders. That hasn't been finalized yet. So
I just seen an article a couple weeks ago. It's been approved.
Was
already.
it? Because I didn't think it had been.
Yeah, I seen it a couple weeks ago. I'm pretty positive they said they actually
Approved
Well,
2
then
weeks
it's
ago. He
Raiders
is a
or nothing.
10% shareholder.
Yeah, that it's Raiders or nothing. And they're just from a business aspect, they can't afford to pay him $37.5 million to play quarterback like Fox is going to pay him to announce a game. So, he's got, I don't know if he'll be any good as an announcer. There's some, some things out there as far as, it's harder than he thought it was going to be. He's worried about, taking the barbs and everybody sniping at him because he may not be perfect right out of the gate. And, he doesn't like criticism. He's, a perfectionist or whatever you want to call it. And so he is, I'm trying to say he's concerned about being, the commentator.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to come back. If he was going to come back, I think he would already made that commitment already, in my opinion.
So let's move on to the next draft pick of, interest. We already talked about Dallas Turner falling down to Minnesota. Okay, we've got Amarius Mims going to Cincinnati. Verse, going to the Rams. The offensive lineman. Then you get Chop Robinson, defensive end, goes to Miami, and they need pass rush. They lost Christian Wilkins in the offseason to the Raiders. A lot of defensive players had to be let go from their team due to salary cap constraints or through free agency. They did add some guys on the cheap. I believe they got Jordan Poyer from the Bills at safety. So, it's not like they are fighting with a dead hand. I think that they need this guy to be a good pass rusher for them, and I think he fits the bill in Miami.
Yes, he does.
Yeah, I thought that was a very solid pick for Miami.
Did you get kicked off the couch there, buddy? What happened?
What's that?
Did you get kicked off the couch? What happened?
No, I had to use the bathroom, so I stayed off camera because I'm not a jerk. Yeah, Chop really doesn't fit what we do here. And I said that right away. If you look at the type of guys we draft for D-end, the guys that we draft for D-end is people like Darius Robinson. And look at Mekhi Wingo as a light DT. He's the type of guys we draft for D-end. We either draft guys that are really light, almost linebackers, or we draft the heavy guys that are almost defensive tackles for D-end. There is no in between. We don't do those ones that are at that 270, 280 mark. We do them at over 280 and under 260 when they get here because we'll bulk them up to what we want them to be.
Yeah.
Look at what we did with Hutch. He gained, 15 pounds and all muscle last year?
Yep.
Because he was at 260 when he got here, and he's almost 270 something now.
Yeah, and I think that pick Wingo, the pick in the 6th round, I think that dude has ability to really help Hutch out, especially with what's the guy Davenport is here too now, so I think you can rotation. You got a rotation. Maybe Hutch can even catch his breath on some plays. I'm really excited to see how that D line is going to be with DJ Reader.
And remember, when Hutch was off the field, who played last year? The commish.
Yeah.
He's the replacement for Hutch when he goes off the field. That's why we kept him, because he wasn't as productive as he was the year before, because we didn't use him as much, because he didn't have to be opposite, because Charles Harris was healthy, Pascal was healthy, Levi was healthy.
Yes.
And we had the Aquara brothers. But the problem is, Romeo Aquara, we overpaid for what he was.
Yeah.
He had the one good year and then was never the same after he got hurt.
Is he the one that retired, or was that the younger brother?
Romeo Acquired is the one that retired. Romeo Aquara retired after Julian didn't get picked up by anybody. Julian's still in free agency.
Okay. And that's possible. He comes back for a cheap signing for
We don't
depth.
even need him, though. We don't need him with what we got now.
You don't think we put him on the practice squad maybe if no one picks him up by the start of the season?
No, because we picked up 2 DNs in the practice squad, too. We picked up Nate Lynn out of Williams and Mary College, and he's almost the exact same build as Romeo. Remember, Julian was a lot lighter and closer to an outside linebacker in the
Yeah.
NFL. So, and that's where we used him, is either at the Sam or the Will when we ran with 3. Yeah, I know, but this isn't his show, and I don't care what Scott thinks of what I do on my shows and the places I visit. I'm outside. I'm not in my house, and I'm enjoying it because if he vapes, I can smoke.
Exactly.
Oh my God!
Don't bother me.
So, listen, you guys are not the only team that really bolstered your secondary.
We're not.
The next pick, and later on in the second round, the Philadelphia Eagles do the same thing. They
Yes,
picked
they
up
did.
the guy that Chris Sims thought was the best corner in the draft, Quinion Mitchell out of Toledo. And in the second round, they come back and get Cooper DeJean, guys.
I was really surprised that Cooper DeJean really dropped to the second round, to be honest.
I'm
He's
not
white.
because he
He's
had
white.
a stigma on him. He had a stigma on him, remember? He'd have been the first white corner drafted in the first round since Adam Archuleta.
Wow.
So, and there's a stigma about it because what happened to Adam Archuleta? After he was in a year, he moved to safety for the Rams. Same with Jason Sehorn with the Giants. Started out as corner, ended as a safety.
Yeah.
They were afraid of that. That's why he was listed as a safety on most draft boards, is because everybody was already moving him because he had half of his snaps at safety at Iowa.
Yeah.
Well, either way, they got both of them, and it's really going to help out their secondary. I think that, they're smart picks by a team that had a weak secondary last year. Of course, they got C.J. Gardner-Johnson back from you guys, also. And so, I think that Philadelphia, with the problems that they had last year, and I really do believe it was coaching and behind the scenes that cost them an opportunity to really have a special year after they made it to the Super Bowl the year before. They lost their offensive coordinator. He becomes the head coach at Indianapolis. They lose their defensive coordinator. He becomes the head coach at Arizona. And they took guys with them, to join them on their staffs. That had a big effect. Veteran leadership got them.
What's up, Gurgley?
One start. And then after that, things started falling apart the longer the season went.
And you know what? I had Cooper DeJean in my top 5. The guy I didn't have in it, because if you actually watch him, he may be fast as hell, but he's just a zone corner as Nate Wiggins.
Yeah.
And he ends up going later in the round.
Yep.
And the next thing here really to discuss, and I'm waiting for it to come across because my mind's drawing a blank, is
the best interior O-lineman went where he needed to go, though. He went to the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers needed that.
Morton. Yeah. It's Brian Thomas Jr. Okay, so Brian Thomas Jr., who we had in our mock draft going to Chicago, okay, he ends up going all the way down here to Jacksonville. Jacksonville needs, some good receivers. They lost Ridley to Tennessee here in the offseason. Now, they did bring Gabe Davis over from the Buffalo Bills. They'll pair him along with Christian Kirk and now Brian Johnson Jr. You've got yourself 3 guys who are all capable of doing different things. Who's the fourth one, buddy?
Zay Flowers.
No.
Right? Or Zay Jones. Zay Jones is the other one.
Flowers is Baltimore.
Flowers is Baltimore. I get them mixed up because it's Zay, the first name.
Me too.
That is a cigarette, sir. I smoke cigarettes.
But they're gonna need to have
What's
some
a dog check?
field, plays. But he was ganging up on the run at the end of the year because they weren't getting any plays. I was stunned. The kind of money that people were willing to pay to Calvin Ridley. He couldn't get open. You know,
Right.
he couldn't get open. And he was on single coverage, he couldn't get open. And
Right.
Well, that's what happens when you have a whole year off
Do
of playing
what?
football.
You see, that's what I said. As I said, watch, Calvin Ridley's going to go to Tennessee, and he's going to flourish now because he got a year to get back into game shape.
Yeah, I don't see that. You know, we'll see what happens because, you know, you got a less experienced quarterback in Will Levis in Tennessee than you do with Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. And I have a lot more faith in Doug Peterson's offense than I will in a brand new offensive coordinator, you know.
And new head coach and new everything.
Yeah.
The rules to this show, it's pretty simple. When I do bring people on and do interviews of different fan bases, and it's just pretty simple. No drinking, you know what I mean? Talk logical, no trash talk. We're not going to sit here and roast each other. Basically, football knowledge.
We've never had to have rules before. Why are the Karens showing up to the show here to complain about what we're doing on the screen while we're trying to talk football?
They're used to the way Scott runs his show because that's where they came from, is the South Florida Tribune, who actually is a media journalist. He has been for 43 years, and he runs it like that, and that's fine. That's his show. But we are all who we are. That's it.
Right.
Now, I don't ever trash individuals. And yes, I do believe the Lions won the draft because if you look at that draft over expectations that I told you about, Lions had a better draft than people gave them credit for, and they ended up with one less pick in it than they originally had because they made so many moves. They traded up to get Wingo because somebody was going to take him. We traded up to get Arnold so that the Packers wouldn't take him because they were high on Arnold. That was one of their targets.
Hi, Greg. Good to have you on here with us.
Has Detroit addressed their problems?
I think they have addressed their problems.
Give me just a second. I'm going to go get my list of the UDFAs because we filled the other problems on the roster through UDFA that people don't even realize yet because we added 14 UDFAs overnight.
Yeah, I seen that. All right, what's our next pick?
Well, I'm not for certain, but I'm going to go ahead and say we're going to talk about the Buffalo Bills trading out from their spot, not once, but twice. You know, they say they had a plan. They say they had, you know, what they were want to do, what they were planning, you know, and everything. But it sure looks like some kind of a mistake to trade to the team that you're trying to beat. Okay? You let them get into the spot and take their choice of wide receivers, and that's Kansas City comes up to Buffalo spot and takes the, you know, Xavier Worthy out of Texas, the guy that has the fastest 40 time in the history of the 40-yard dash at the combine.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I was talking to people during the draft and also on Facebook and things, they're like, well, why is, you know, if this guy's so great, why is he still there? And I said, well, listen, okay, the reason why this guy is still there is because in Andy Reid's offense, they design plays to get the people open and let them make big plays after they get the ball. The guys that went ahead of Worthy are capable of getting open on their own. Okay. The Harrisons and the other players that are there, you know, are the kind of dynamic players that, you know, they can break up a double team. Okay. They can split it out. They can, you know, get themselves open and make plays. But with Andy Reid's offense, you know, this guy here, a lot of people are like, well, this is the next Tyreek Hill. Cool your jets and wait and see what he has first. Can he pick up the offense? They have a difficult offense to learn. Okay.
Right. But I want to address that too.
Yeah, you know, but you know what you have is he gets guys open. a la Travis Kelce. Why is Travis Kelce always open? Because that's the way the offense is designed, to get them open, get them the ball, let them make the plays, after they get the ball, rather than happy to make a play before they get the ball. And so, they call it a finesse offense in some circles, but, it's working out fine for winning, all these games that they've won over the last several years. Andy Reid's a proven coach. His offense is proven. It doesn't matter who the offensive coordinator is, because Andy Reid's the one drawing up the plays.
And I think he has a chance to be a huge impact, Greg, because with Rice facing a suspension for we don't know how long, but it's most likely going to happen, he's going to have ability to get, I think, first-string reps in the first couple games, depending on how his preseason and training camp goes.
He's going to be ahead of the curve. He's going to be ahead of the curve because he lives in Texas. He played in Texas. Patrick Mahomes is hosting his Texas camp down there with all of these other players, and he's going to get right in there, and they're going to teach him the playbook early. They're going to work on routes. They're going to, he will learn from Patrick and the other guys that are there. And yes, I think he will have a huge impact. I think that for all of the naysayers and the sky is falling fans for the Kansas City Chiefs, they have playmakers on the team, but they were either hurt, they had the dropsies, they got down on themselves, they listened to everybody, browbeating them about what they have done. I still believe in Kadarius Toney. I think that he's going to have a bounce back year this year. I think that if Sky Moore is healthy, there is a reason why they didn't bring Mecole Hardman back. Okay. They brought in Marquise Hollywood Brown. They drafted Xavier Worthy. This is their wide receiver room. The guys they had last year and the guys that are on, that they just picked up. And I think that they're going to make it work. And with the new rules when it comes to, punts and kick returns, especially the kick returns, okay, Worthy is, with his speed, he is a kick return specialist, and I think he'll make big plays for Kansas City this year.
Yep, and let's go into that, too, about what Worthy will do for that offense. Worthy's going to do for that offense what J-Mo did for us while he was still getting his feet under him when he first got back off of the suspension. His speed made it so Amon-Ra, Raymond, Laporta, and everybody else was open underneath. And everybody forgets that because they have to respect it and have two of those people deep just to cover that guy. And when he does get open, he'll be wide open because there isn't anybody with that speed. Worthy is that Jameson Williams type of speed guy, Tyreek Hill type of speed guy, etc., etc. He doesn't have the greatest hands, but he is a dog after he has the ball in his hands when he does catch it. He likes to bowl over defenders. He likes to run through them. Kind of like how Jameson did. Look how he ran through defenders to get the touchdown there against the Rams.
Yeah.
The thing that I'm happiest about is, there was a lot of speculation that the Chiefs were going to take Adonai Mitchell, and I was worried about that because of the things that I'd heard on the NFL Sirius radio channel with Pat Kerwin. He said that, Mitchell, of the two receivers, that he was lazy, and the Chiefs team will not stand for that. If Worthy is a dog and he's a worker, he will fit right in with their team because they run themselves ragged in training camp so that they are ready for the season, and that's what they need.
Yeah, and also, I agree with that last statement about Jameson Williams where he says this needs to be his breakout year. It has to be. It'll be his first one where he's available week one. There has to be, I'd say, probably a minimum of 750 yards and at least 6 touchdowns for it to be considered a successful season for Jameson Williams because it's his first full year where he can actually get targets and work with Goff in the offseason here once we get to the OTAs and the camps and stuff. And I'm quite sure that's going to be a focal point.
And he'll have to make a big impression for your team if he wants them to activate that 5th-year option at the end of this year. Because he's only guaranteed for the 4 years. They need the 5th-year option if he's going to stick around.
Right. And if he does exactly what I said, more than likely they'll give him the 5th-year option because that'll show the growth and the experience that they want him to have, is what I was getting at.
Do you think AMD will beat earnings on Tuesday? What's AMD?
Don't know. But at the same time,
wild question.
have we pretty much covered the first round positions that we wanted to cover now and the people we wanted to cover yet?
We're coming down to the end. Let me look here real quick and make sure, because it's on the ticker. We covered Terrion Arnold in Detroit. I want to say something real quick. Jordan Morgan going to Green Bay. I thought that the Chiefs were going to take an offensive lineman in the first round. I had him as the guy. So that's a good pickup for Green Bay.
Don't tell Chris about that one. He was livid.
Darius Robinson to Arizona. Real good pickup there. We talked about Guyton at Dallas instead of a running back. There's Wiggins to Baltimore. Pearsall, I think that him going there and Leggett going to Carolina, for those 2 picks, Ricky Pearsall is insurance. I think that they may be looking to trade one of their other guys to give them more cap room, because at some point real soon they're going to have to pay Brock Purdy.
Right. They have to pay Brock Purdy next year.
And they can't afford to pay both Deebo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk. So they're going to be shopping these 2 guys. Which one is going to get traded based on the compensation and the contracts? Deebo's already got his contract, but Ayuk hasn't. And so maybe it'll be Deebo that ends up going and Ayuk staying.
Yep, and that's where I was going to say.
I don't think so. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I don't think so. I think it's Ayuk that's going to be gone.
Ayuk actually applauded the choice of Ricky Pearsall because he came out of the same school he did. He said, man, we just got a dog right there. I'm so happy he's joining our team. Deebo is the one that was upset. Deebo also has the cap clearance as of next year to be cleared in the offseason because the dead cap comes off of that deal. Year 3 was the year they could move off of it. So I don't think Deebo gets moved this year. I think Deebo gets moved next year.
But the whole thing is Buffalo needed wide receivers. And the fact that they traded that pick to KC and KC got one of the fastest receivers in the draft really just makes Buffalo look really stupid.
And then they traded back again with Carolina, and they took the other one they were looking at in Leggett. Worthy and Leggett were their 1 and 2 targets, so they settled on Keon Coleman.
Yeah.
That's possible.
Carolina. Go ahead.
The only one I say Ayuk was the one looking out before you guys just mentioned what you did was because you're familiar with the ticket.
Yep.
On the Mike show and the draft show, I think it's Rico is his name.
Oh, yeah. Or Rico Beard.
Oh, I think Rico Beard. He does a show with Mike every day, but it was a bunch of them from multiple shows together at the Buffalo Wild Wings, and he's a 49ers fan, and they asked in pre-draft, if you draft a wide receiver tonight, does that mean Ayuk is probably gone? And he's like, yeah. So I didn't even think about Deebo would be on the block, to be 100% honest, but it makes sense because he got the big contract now, really breaking it down.
Yep, and ever since they signed Christian McCaffrey, he hasn't been used the same way anymore. He's not that big weapon like he was with doing the running back stuff and the wide receiver stuff, and his numbers reflected that last season.
The only time he did that is when McCaffrey had to sit and they
Right.
used him in that position, and it was only a couple of games. The rest of the time, he was back in his standard wideout position. They did do a few end arounds here and there, which he's very good at, but teams were keying for that, and so he never really broke off any big runs like he had been in the past.
Well, Jimmy, this show is a broadcast of football. That's what we all talk about.
Full of shit, dude. He's giving everybody a hard time. All right, throw up the bubble of the Kansas City Chiefs picks, would you, bud?
No, man, we're not talking KC on this fucking show, David. No, I'm just joking. I'm just joking with you.
Okay, so we already talked about Worthy. And then, like I said, I thought they were going to get an offensive lineman in the first round. They come back and get Kingsley Suamataia out of the offensive tackle out of BYU. What's interesting about this is that, that's where Andy Reid went to school, is BYU. And so he keeps his eye on the offensive lineman over there. This guy is actually the cousin of y'all's guy, Penei Sewell. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, there's some things he needs to work on, which is why he fell in the second round. But this gives them depth. He could possibly end up at left tackle. He can play both left and right. And so I'm really thrilled with that. Jared Wiley is preparing for the loss of Travis Kelce. Okay. Yep. This guy played so well at TCU. He led the nation at tight end in touchdowns. And so,
and in yak yards at tight end.
Yeah, and so I think that Travis Kelce basically follows in his brother's footsteps. If they get the three-peat this year, I think that with all of his off-the-field interests, there's a chance that he'll retire. And so this guy's going to come in. They picked up Irv Smith Jr. from Cincinnati and previously from Minnesota in the offseason at free agency. I like Noah Gray, but I think that they're letting these other inline blocking tight ends are going to end up walking away. The Blake Bells of the world are probably done in Kansas City. Jaden Hicks was highly touted at safety. Him falling down as far as he did, the Chiefs sweated out getting him at this point. But this is another indication that they are bolstering. And it's a revolving door of guys they know that are going to want to get paid in their secondary, and they're replacing them a little at a time as they go. They let Snead go in a trade and didn't ask for a lot from him because, he did such a good job for them. And so they bring in him, and they bring in, Kamal Hayden at corner. And so two secondary guys with a chance to make the team. I think that the Hunter Norzad at center pick, that him along with, C.J. Hansen, they're lower round guys, so you don't know how they'll pan out, but they have to be preparing for the possibility that they're going to lose some of their offensive line greats because they're not going to be able to afford to pay them. Next year, Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith are both going to be, wanting to get paid. They got Nick Bolton at linebacker, who I'm pretty sure they're going to want to re-sign. And so they may keep Nick Bolton and they may keep one of their offensive linemen. They're not going to be able to keep all three.
And a very underrated guy that could be a flash guy to take over if they can't get the deal done with Creed Humphrey. I like Hunter Norzad out of Penn State. He had a very good year opening up the run gaps, and he also did very good in pass protection with only giving up 2 sacks from the interior O-line position all season. So he actually did really good, and considering how good that front seven of Michigan was when they played him, he didn't give up a sack that game.
Yeah. The other thing here with him is the Chiefs have been very quiet about Joe Thuney's injury, the one that didn't allow him to play in the Super Bowl, and they had to use, Allegretti in that position. Well, Allegretti left in free agency for some pretty good money to be a starter in Washington, and he reunites over there with Andrew Wiley, who's another Chief who left the previous season. And so, is Tooney going to be able to rebound and play this year? Is he going to be healthy and at full strength? Or is this, a real bad injury that he's not going to be able to overcome, and they're going to have to put somebody else in that place? If that's the case, and they decide they're going to have to release him, that will clear quite a bit of cap room because he's making over $20 million a season.
Yeah.
So that's my take on the Kansas City Chiefs. Do you want to do the Detroit Lions next?
Yeah,
Because we talk Detroit on this show, Chris.
Yeah, we do talk Detroit on this show. We got Terry Arnold, Ernest Rakestraw. I think we got two studs at cornerback. We discussed it earlier. It kind of shocked me because last week's mock draft I had us taking a quarterback, obviously the wrong one because I didn't think we had Arnold going way earlier in the draft, and so I turned out to be right. The one surprising pick we got was
Giovanni Manu.
I was kind of shocked just because of where he came from was the shock because I knew we were probably going to draft 1 to 2 offensive linemen in this draft, but I didn't expect to jump up to get him where he came from. But I'll take it. The dude's 6'8", 350 pounds. Dude's a beast.
5'2", 40. That's fast for such a big man.
Yes.
And I remember I told you about him that we had a top 30 visit with him.
Yeah.
His wingspan is so large. If he was to stand like a quarterback right behind Frank Ragnow, he could reach out and touch Taylor Decker's shoulder and then reach out with the other hand and touch Penei Sewell's shoulder. That's how long his wingspan is. So what I like about him is he may be raw, but he already shows the technique to get low in pass protection, to get under those bigger defensive ends that tend to bowl smaller tackles over.
And to me, he's probably going to be learning behind Decker.
He is.
And when Decker leaves, he's going to be the replacement. And then you're going to have Penei Sewell on the right hand and him on the left. You ain't going to blindside Jared Goff.
Here's the crazy thing. Did you see the video when he got done with his phone call, what he said to his family while the cameras was on him?
No, I didn't catch that.
He hangs up the phone. He goes, all right, I need to protect Jared Goff.
That's awesome.
He's excited to be here. And the other thing is with his athleticism, because he's also a two-sport athlete. He played basketball for the University of British Columbia, was a 6'8" center. And the only thing he got in trouble with was blocking jump shots because he tended to get a lot of goaltending, a lot like Patrick Ewing used to get back in college.
Yeah.
So, but if they were at the rim, it was Dikembe Mutombo style blocks. Where he was so big and so strong when he'd hit the basketball, it was bouncing off of people's shoulders.
Also, we got Sion Vaki.
Yep.
Safety.
He was a safety plus a running back. He was a two-way player at Utah. The crazy thing is he was used in the passing game. He was also used in the run game. And as an offensive player, he had over a 90 PFF score. What he had a smaller score on was safety. So I think he's going to end up being more of a special teams and a backup running back on this roster.
That's what I've heard a lot of reports, and I'm okay with that. And then one of the biggest steals of the draft, we just mentioned him not too long, Malik Wingo, defensive tackle, and I think this guy could be a huge adjustment and a huge addition because James Houston's coming back again, and this is going to be the make it break it year for James Houston, and this kid's going to be able to probably steal some reps from him, if James Houston can't stay healthy and get back to the year he had previously with us.
But I think you're a little off on the steal of the draft. The steal of the draft was the next pick because that guy was the 85th prospect. He was slated as a third rounder. Christian Mahogany out of Boston College was said all he needed was a year to adjust, and he's a starter in the NFL. And I think he's the heir apparent to Zietler, who's
Yeah.
34 years old and almost retirement age as a guard.
Okay. So take that. If you want, we can do the
UDFA
undrafted free agents real quick.
Okay, the undrafted free agents that we picked up, and I'm going to highlight about 5 of them. 1, because he has a unique name. 3, because they're the ones that got guaranteed money, which are usually the ones that end up cracking the 53-man roster after the preseason's over. The one that is going to crack the lineup, and it could, because of his kick return abilities, is Isaiah Williams out of Illinois. He's a shorter, smaller guy, similar to Khalif Raymond, just a hair taller, just under 6 foot tall. But he averaged 19.3 yards a kick return in college. He got a $240K guaranteed contract out of us. And that's a lot of money for an undrafted free agent. So, and then you got Duke Clemens out of UCLA, who got $60,000 guaranteed. He's played also left guard and right guard. Duke Clemens. The other one was Isaac Ukwu out of Ole Miss. He was an underrated defensive end who's kind of a tweener, just like Miko.
Okay.
Oaken J. How you doing, Dusty? And then the other ones were Jalen Cahoon out of Duke, a wide receiver. He was the first wide receiver in Duke history to have over 5,000 career yards, and he did it in 3 years. So that's a huge one to watch to see if he can crack the roster. He's a little bigger than Isaiah Williams. Yeah, I think he's 6'2", which puts him right in line with all of the wide receivers that we have on the bigger side. They are all 6'1" to 6'3". We don't really have that 6'4" plus guy on the roster, but he also is a contested catch guy. We got Isaac Rex out of BYU, tight end, and he's a good-sized guy. He's 6'5" and 260. He ran a 4.7 40, which means he's neither fast nor slow. He's average speed. Green's spot is in jeopardy because Green is also 6'3" and runs a sub 4.4. I think he didn't get a chance to flourish because we had so many of those clutch guys on the team. We had Reynolds, which was Goff's security blanket. Raymond became a favorite for Goff. And then, of course, Amon-Ra and Sam Laporta, the way they played, it made it hard for Green to hit the field, especially with them lowering the suspension of J-Mo. We needed to see more of Green in those first 4 games. Nate Lynn out of Williams and Mary College. He started to come out last year, but he didn't get a agent, so he was able to go back, and he actually got NIL money in Division II at Williams and Mary College. So that tells you he must be one of the better players in Division II. He actually has an 8.68 RAS.
Okay.
And he's very productive, and he's a sack guy. He had 12.5 sacks in his 3 years. In the first year, he only played 4 games.
Wow.
The other guy I really like, and I love his name, even though he came from a school I hate, which is OSU. It's a linebacker who's 6'4" and 240 pounds. His name is Steel Chambers, which sounds like one of 2 things. It's either a bad actor from an old 70s porn. Or a new type of gun that has steel chambers. It's one or the other. But he actually is very decent in man and zone coverage. He tackles really well. He was a tackle leader a couple years ago when they had so many stud linebackers come out, which is kind of crazy. But he had a small injury at the beginning of the time. And we also picked up the kicker from University of Michigan, James Turner. We got long snapper Hogan Hatton out of Idaho, who didn't have one single muff snap to his holders for them. So that's somebody to look at because, we got Scott Daly and Jake McQuaid, but Scott Daly's getting long in the tooth and Jake McQuaid's also getting older. We might go younger here. Defensive back Lauren Strickland out of Ball State, who played safety and corner and all over the field, inside, nickel. He played Viper in the box safety. He's a hard hitter and an in-air ball defender. Not much, doesn't have the hands.
Yeah.
Deron Gilbert out of Northern Illinois is a safety also, and that ends up the list of our UDFAs.
So sounds like we've loaded our practice squad heading into training camp. I mean, some are not going to make the team. Some are just camp bodies, obviously.
I mean, think about it. We said we wanted to get somebody either in the draft or in UDFA just to be competition for Badgley.
Yeah.
We've all said this. We said it all last year when we had Patterson. Why did we waste a draft capital? Because think about it. We'd have had 2 7th-round picks if we wouldn't have made the trade to get Patterson from the Jags when they were getting ready to let him walk. But if he goes to waivers, we're in the waiver wire, and we were in the middle of the road, and we would have to wait, and if somebody else picked him up, and they wanted him back because he was clutch for us the year before, he went to the Jags. Plus, think about it, he won that game in the playoffs for the Jags that year when they did win one.
Yeah.
So
go ahead. And now we're on to Minnesota Vikings. You want to take us through this, David?
Sure. So, I mean, I think they got the quarterback they wanted. We got super lucky with Dallas Turner coming down. Going into last year, before the college season was played out for the 2023-2024 year, Dallas Turner was the number 1 rated, edge rusher in college football. And here he is. He falls to us. I think it's great because they need somebody to replace Danielle Hunter. When you go with Kyrie Jackson, and I've done just a bit of research here in the last 5 minutes because I don't know these guys. Kyrie Jackson's got a lot of size, okay? They don't necessarily think that he has the speed, but he's definitely got size. He's good with contested catches. And, he comes from Oregon, so they're playing a lot of pass-happy teams. And so I think this could be a good pickup for them. We've had a bit of a weak secondary for several years now. Walter Rouse has played left tackle at Oklahoma. They view him as possibly a swing tackle, a guy that can come off the bench and be either the left or right guy in a pinch. I don't know that he'll be a starter right away or anything, as he was picked later in the rounds. But what I find interesting is that, Greg Joseph has been a decent kicker for them, and he's going to pick up this guy, this new place kicker. And so there'll be some competition in training camp. I don't know that he'll be considered the favorite, even though we saw a few missed kicks last year from Joseph. I think he'll retain his job, but this guy could be a practice squad player or end up on another team with a trade perhaps during training camp or preseason. And then just, the other 2 guys are for depth. They're being brought into camp to give them an opportunity to see what they can do. Don't have a lot of information on them, but we definitely need offensive line and defensive line. And they've given themselves a chance to maybe find a diamond in the rough here with both these guys.
Yeah.
I really like Will Reichard. He was actually the 3rd best kicker in this draft because he was so accurate. He didn't have a miss last year. He's a lot of the reason why Alabama made it to the playoffs. So say what you want. This is a guy that could take over for Joseph. And let Joseph, either you guys cut Joseph or let him walk, because kickers don't make a lot of money unless they're really great.
And that's fine because I want the best kicker we can get. This team this year is probably going to end up playing some pretty close games, and they can't afford to miss kicks. And this guy can kick some pretty deep stuff. I saw some deep kicks from Alabama. this year.
52 yards.
And so, yeah, I mean, maybe he'll be the guy, and it'll be a camp competition. Is he going to be the guy for him or not? If he wins the job, more power to him.
You need to hope he doesn't start out like Mr. Third-round pick last year for the 49ers, who had 5 games before he hit a field goal.
Oh, yeah. They still ended up in the Super Bowl, though. So, I mean,
I understand that, but I'm just saying he started out the year rough with the yips, is what I'm getting at. That
and both those guys in the Super Bowl kicking 50-plus yard field goals, setting the records, in the Super Bowl with their kicks. So,
and I just want to give Dave some shit right now. I told him he was taking JJ.
Yeah,
and he took JJ. I
hope he works out. I'm concerned, because I think that a lot of the pre-draft, the preamble, the build-up from Harbaugh was because he was hoping, to get his guy, picked high so he'd make good money. I've seen some of the statistics where he's played well.
Yeah.
But I've also seen where they've handed the ball off 30 straight times and he didn't throw the ball in order to win the game.
But I understand that, but this is what people don't understand. That has nothing to do with JJ playing. That is Harbaugh. His whole goal was to bring back Ben Schechtmer's style of football back to the University of Michigan. And that football was run the ball and just keep running the ball. That's what Michigan game plan was every week. And it worked because of the backfield that they have.
And also, don't forget, after the first 8 games, he was serving the 3-game suspension. So what they did was they hid JJ so that when we got to the Big Ten championship and he did have to throw versus Iowa, they wouldn't be ready for it, because that is one of the pro-style defenses in the Big Ten. It was Ohio State, Michigan, and Iowa as the best defenses in the Big Ten.
Just like I was telling a Minnesota fan when we were talking in the bar, I said, please don't draft my boy. And she's like, I'm nervous if we draft your boy. I don't know if I want him because he didn't throw the ball. There's one play that JJ made that helped us beat in the Rose Bowl. He gets hit, and it's clearly off the ground, and he throws a perfect spiral, still 30 yards, to set us up to go score a touchdown. One of the most beautiful balls I've ever seen the kid throw. The kid has mobility. He can run. He can move out of the pocket. I'm not saying he's going to be the greatest thing that ever happened, because he's still, let's face it, it's the NFL. He's still got to see if he can translate in the NFL just like anybody else does. But to me, how much focus this kid puts in the game, there's no doubt in my mind he's going to be a good quarterback. And I'm actually pissed that we have to play him twice a year in the upcoming years. I do not want to see freaking JJ freaking slinging the ball ever. And, playing him once every now and then would have been fine, but playing him twice a year for the next possibly 5 years, I did not want that.
Hey, you said we were going to take him. What's wrong?
Hey, just because I said you were going to take him doesn't mean I wanted him to go there.
But at the same time, when he was throwing the ball, for as many wow factor throws he had those what the fuck throws.
Yeah, but I think every quarterback does them.
A lot of Michigan fans overhyped JJ too, including Harbaugh. As much as we don't want to say it, yes, he was very, very accurate through the first 8 games. He was not the way. They won games. They won games because of the run game.
Yeah.
I think if JJ plays, I hope Sam Darnold just plays average. If he plays average, they don't have to start JJ this year, which I think would be better for his development, because rookies that play right away.
Play the whole year.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I think it would be very
except
good
for
for
the
him to
last
be.
week of the season, when they've already wrapped up the playoff spot and the division, then they can let JJ come on in and play.
Even if all they got is a wild card spot and they're not playing a divisional opponent, and it doesn't matter because you're not going to move up the rankings, you let JJ play then, is what I'm saying. Have the spot locked up. Or
you
if you're not in.
You think that was funny, Chris?
What do you mean? Well, part was supposed to
not understand my joke when I said that
I understood your
when
joke.
the Vikings already
it.
had the division all wrapped up and they could sit their starters, there for the last week of the year.
I mean, if you had somebody better than Sam McDonald, that's a possibility. I just don't.
Darnold?
I'm sorry. But maybe I don't trust him because the dude's played a backup role great, but every time he becomes a starter, it just don't really trend well for him. So, but I'm curious to see what he can do now since he's older and matured and understands the game a lot better. Because he hasn't started in a couple years.
The thing I have the most positivity about with Darnold starting is that although the terminology may be a little bit different, he's going to basically be in the same offensive system he was in last year because it's the Shanahan-McVay system that O'Connell is running in Minnesota.
Yeah. And honestly, JJ, don't get me wrong, I don't think JJ comes in and lights the freaking league up like CJ Stroud does. But if he does get called on early, the one good thing Minnesota and JJ got is JJ, the wide out. He would be able to roll out, get open, and swing in the ball.
Agency. So, I mean, between him and Ty Chandler, I think we're going to have a decent running game this year. It just depends on if the offensive line can run block. The guy who we got in the draft, who I said is the swing tackle from Oklahoma, he's a road grader. That's the one thing they said is he's a very good run blocker. So if we can have good run blocking and can run the ball, I know that Brian Flores, we lost some people on defense, but the defense was much improved under his guidance as the defensive coordinator last year. And so
and on my show, I warned Lions fans. I said, you watch. Brian Flores doesn't need talent to have a good defense. He's a good defensive coordinator. He always has been. And he actually was a good head coach. He was the only one of those Miami Belichick guys that looked like they were going to make it, but the owner screwed him in Miami.
Yeah.
Quintez Cephas is now a Buffalo Bill.
I did not hear that, but thank you for
today.
I did not hear that. You definitely got Hawk 2 coming back.
Probably
he is a winner, whatever it takes.
Half of the season, which is why in the mock draft I thought we'd get Bowers and wait on the quarterback later on.
Did you guys hear about the owner again with the Carolina Panthers? What he did this weekend?
Yeah, about driving past the store that says, please don't have a hand in our draft picks or whatever.
Yeah. Let the GM and the coach make the picks this year.
Yeah, and
I'm sorry, but if I was that worker, like I showed my dad the video, and I was like, dude, if I was this worker, I probably would have got fired and probably would have been in jail with a smile on my face because I would have punched him right in the mouth as soon as he grabbed my hat and just took it off because I was a different fan than the Carolina Panthers. Like, the owner of the restaurant put that sign out.
Right.
Not the dude that's just the hostess for the draft party. Like, in the NFL, it's just crazy because to me, the NFL didn't really punish him for spilling the drinks on the players or on the fans. He got basically slapped in the hand with that. And now he's in restaurants doing this shit because they know he screwed the team last year by not taking CJ Stroud.
He's worse than Dan Snyder at this point for as young in his ownership career as he is. To be making these mistakes and thinking he can get away with them, I think that the NFL's got a real problem on their hands with this guy, and I expect that he's going to get in trouble for that when they finally get around to it.
Yes, we talked about that early in the show, Earl.
Get paid for touching it.
Yeah,
Hutchinson is feasting on Donald. I think so too.
You know, they've got a decent O-line, but you know what? It wasn't able to stop our rush when it wasn't as good last year. I think our pass rush is much improved from what we had the year before.
Yeah, because right now we're going to have a secondary, so that means we can blitz a lot more without leaving our secondary out to dry. That's the one huge thing. I'm hoping it works out like that.
And if you look at a lot of the guys on this roster, we still have a lot of 3-4 guys trying to learn a 4-2-5.
Yeah.
If we would go back to the 3-4 under we were running in 2021, I think it would be a lot better.
I think the guy's actually a billionaire.
He is.
If I'm not mistaken, and that's why the dude acts the way he is, because I got enough money to buy my way on everything.
And I love his next comment, then buy season tickets with the money.
Hey, you're just being a hater. Come on now.
Well, gentlemen, I have nothing further to add to the discussion for this week. I think we put on another good show. Jeremy, thanks again for joining us here.
No problem. The only thing that I found out is that the publisher, when he was sitting next to me, because I went live on my podcast and was streaming and talking about each pick, when he was hearing me break down the players' games and what their strengths and weaknesses was, he goes, I knew you were good, but I didn't know you were this good. So he had a discussion with me after we got done and when we were in the car, and he's going to contact a couple of community colleges or Division II schools in the state to see about getting me on as an intern doing video analysis for the teams.
That'd be awesome.
Which
that would be awesome.
That is the doorway to scouting.
Right.
That's where you start. He goes, he has contacts with former Lions special team coach John Bonamego, who also was the head coach of CMU at one time. Also has contacts with Mel Farr Jr., Mel Farr Superstars kid that went to UCLA and went for a short time until he got injured, was a running back in the NFL.
That'd be awesome. So I seriously think the Bears defense needs to win for that team. I think Green Bay will be a good team this year, and I hope those two teams beat each other up. And Minnesota is a sneaky team I don't trust, so we just need to put the hammer down on. I agree. I mean, even when they were as bad as they were last year after the Kirk Cousins injury, they started creeping back up there towards the end of the year, and they were playing a lot of close games, for sure.
Well, I'm going to do some in-depth research on all of the picks over the next couple of weeks. We'll have my way too early predictions in a couple of Sundays as far as what we think is going to happen for this upcoming year. But we still won't know with no schedule release. That always is important. And you'll have the next round of free agency as well now that the draft is over. And so, gentlemen, it's been great. Thanks again for joining us, Jeremy, Chris. As always, thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you guys for joining. And if you guys haven't already, if you want to follow Fourth Going Sports, we're live every Sunday. And then when the season goes, we'll be live on Tuesday. The link. Yep. The links, you can follow us. They're all on in the chats on Facebook. Just type in Fourth Going Sports. It'll pop right up. Or you can look up me or David online. So,
and don't forget to follow mine too, Kneecap Biting with the Motor City Lions, and you can also find it under the same page name on Facebook.
Exactly. I invited over 1,000 people to your page.
Yeah,
I see.
Steadily growing. It's over 170, I think now.
Awesome.
Right around there.
Good to hear.
As soon as I hit 1,000, StreamYard will allow me to go live into it again.
Good deal.
I don't know why Facebook stopped people from being able to go live into groups.
It's weird because like I stream right to my page and then I can share it from my page.
And you can stream right to your profile page, but they stopped it from being able to go into groups. Facebook did itself.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Like my Motor City Kneecap Biters page I had, it just all of a sudden it said, "Oh, you can't go here." Try to reconnect. I try to reconnect, and it says Facebook's not allowing it.
Wow.
Been doing it for 2 years there, and all of a sudden I get a big following, and then they drop me. Thank you, Ron.
Hey, it's funny because didn't he just say JJ was a boss like 5 minutes ago?
Yeah.
Good night.
Good night.
All right, good night, guys. All right, we'll talk to you later.